All right, so here we go. Welcome today. Here we are. After today, we're looking at what, one day? One day. Yes, the end is so close. So close. And so just again, just as a reminder, I've been saying it all week, the deadline for any missing work is Tuesday, June 1st. And that's a firm deadline. Principal Herbert had sent out numerous emails to us about that is the firm deadline. There is no extensions after that. So let's make sure we take care of that business. All right. And just a heads up, tomorrow we will not have a live Google Meet, but I will keep it open if you have questions about this last exam. And that review sheet for the last exam is there. And you want to look at it. It is patterned after like we had the other short answer exams where there are 2 questions and there's pools of questions that you could pick from, so you can select those. Take a look at that review sheet, gives you some insight, and it's going to take us from the Cold War from the beginning to its end. All right, so do some prep. That means Tuesday of next week really is kind of like, let's just wrap it up. And you can take the Cold War assessment in class if you want on Tuesday, but you do definitely want to get it done by, I believe, 2 o'clock on Tuesday. All right, so perhaps take some time during the weekend. Take some time maybe tomorrow to do it as well. Okay, questions, comments, concerns related to that? All right. Now, one thing here, before I cut you loose to work on communism in crisis here, finishing it up perhaps, the Soviet coup. If we want to look at the ultimate end to the Soviet Union, it is a result of this coup. And the coup is going to be done by hardliners who are definitely opposing what Mikhail Gorbachev is trying to do with perestroika and glasnost. Glasnost is just simply the opening of the Soviet Union to multiple perspectives and having free thought, free discussion, and that's going to contribute to a pluralistic state, I guess we can look at. And perestroika is just trying to restructure the economy, and the economy is faltering here as well. So let's take a look at this little video clip here, and we'll go from there. But first, let me mute my mic.
Coupons to buy socks. There weren't even any socks available. There was nothing on the shelves except out-of-date tins of fish. That was the result of perestroika. When Boris Nikolaevich Yeltsin suggested a new way forward, of course, people supported him.
Russia,
where Yeltsin and his radical Democrats were taking over, had practically declared independence from the Soviet Union. They adopted law after law that replaced the laws of the Soviet Union.
All that winter, Gorbachev was harassed by pressures from each side, for reform and against it. In December, Eduard Shevardnadze resigned. With Gorbachev sitting stony-faced, he warned of a hardline coup.
Наступает диктатура, заявляюсь со всей ответственностью. Никто не знает, какая это будет диктатура и кто придет.
Gorbachev had changed tack. He tightened security and brought hardliners into government. He appointed Gennady Yanayev his deputy. Yanayev declared, "I am a communist to the depths of my soul." Vilnius, Lithuania. On the 11th and 12th of January 1991, crack Soviet troops entered the capital to take back public buildings for the Soviet state. Lithuanians flocked to defend their parliament and the radio and television stations. In the early hours of January the 13th, Soviet tanks attacked. If Lithuania were allowed to break free, there would be nothing to stop the other republics doing the same.
Some people tried to push the tank back with their bare hands. My legs got tangled. I stumbled and fell on my back. I felt the tank treads pressing on my legs. I didn't feel great pain, but I was shouting very loudly with all my strength, "Mama."
Loretta's leg was saved. In the fighting, hundreds were injured. 14 were killed. In Moscow, thousands marched to protest against the crackdown. Gorbachev, caught in the middle, defended his government's actions.
Мы же не можем допустить так. Ни центр, ни республики не можем стать на такую, чтобы не видеть это, что если ситуация такая возникает, там трудно предсказать, что может произойти.
Army Day, 1991. The banners say, "Strong army, strong union," and no to capitalism in the Soviet Union. Back to the old ways. In summer, Gorbachev went to London. As usual, he basked in the welcome he received overseas. He had business to do. At the United States Embassy, he met Bush and agreed the terms of another New Deal on arms limitation. But for the Soviet economy, the urgent need was for financial aid. Gorbachev asked the leading capitalist countries for massive loans. In seeking to end the Cold War, he was doing them all a favor. But in spite of the smiles and the handshakes, they turned him down flat. In Moscow, his enemies were preparing to move against him.
I wrote a letter to Gorbachev, warning him that trouble was brewing. He replied, "Alexander, you overestimate their intelligence and courage." In July, I resigned. I said, "Something's cooking, I can sense it." He ignored me and went on holiday.
Gorbachev had drafted a new Union treaty, loosening the ties between the Soviet center and the republics. When it was due for signature in August, hardline communists were appalled. Boris Pugo, Dmitry Yazov, Gennady Yanayev, Vladimir Khrushchev.
When I read the text for the first time on the 15th of August, I was amazed by the fact that we only had 4 days left to the end of the Soviet Union.
On August the 18th, a delegation arrived in the Crimea, where Gorbachev was on holiday. They demanded he declare a state of emergency and hand over power. He refused and was put under house arrest. On August the 19th, Moscow awoke to the sound of tanks and the news that Gorbachev was ill. An emergency committee had taken over.
This is a CNN special report.
Soviet President Mikhail Gorbachev is, according to the official Soviet TASS news agency, out of office at this hour, replaced by his vice president, Gennady Yanayev. The White House, we are told, has now been informed. President Bush is apparently checking with officials on the situation.
Well, let me make a few comments about these momentous and stunning events. While we're still watching the situation unfold, and it still is unfolding, all is not clear, it seems clearer all the time that contrary to official statements out of Moscow, that this move was extra-constitutional.
In Moscow, confused and concerned, people began to gather at the Russian Parliament building, the White House. No one knew where or how Gorbachev was, or what was really happening. Boris Yeltsin, Gorbachev's enemy and rival, defended him and the Constitution.
Давайте будем держаться твердо. Не пройдет реакция. Реакция не пройдет. Нет.
Yeltsin entered the Parliament building and prepared to resist. The coup had not succeeded in seizing power outright. Soldiers were refusing to obey the emergency committee. Some commanders turned their tanks around.
Я очень рада, что солдаты наши нас поняли. Я надеюсь, что это был не только приказ их командира, но и их внутреннее желание.
Anxious crowds grew throughout the day. On the evening of the 19th, nervously, the plotters held a televised press conference.
Советский народ был информирован о создании комитета по чрезвычайному положению.
They were frightened. They had shaking hands. It was clear they didn't know what to do. At the same time, I felt scared because, God forbid, they should really come to power. What would happen then?
Gorbachev was unable to contact the outside world. He recorded this statement to a home video camera. No one saw it. As night fell, fears grew that the emergency committee, increasingly desperate, might order an attack on the White House and its defenders.
We were defending a free Russia, and the symbol of free Russia was Yeltsin. We joined hands and waited for the tanks in dead silence.
As the armored vehicles moved among them, 3 young men were killed. At 3 in the morning, Khrushchev called Yeltsin in the White House and admitted defeat.
We were not bloodthirsty. We were not ready to pay any price to hold on to power.
Yeltsin sent a plane to bring Gorbachev back to Moscow. He arrived early on August the 22nd.
Все, что мы сделали после 1985 года, уже дало свои реальные плоды. общество, люди наши стали другими, и это было главным препятствием на пути этой авантюры, на которой встали группы лиц.
Who emerges from this whole failed coup attempt as perhaps a viable option for the future is Boris Yeltsin. He definitely will ride this into being the president of Russia and ultimately the end of what we know as the Soviet Union. So it's a failed coup. And so again, a coup is just an attempt to overthrow a government. We can call it a coup. If it was German, we'll call it a putsch attempt. If it was done by the military, we might call it the junta. But still, it was an attempt to overthrow Mikhail Gorbachev and his government, and it fails. Now, why do you suppose the West, Western leaders, had showed support for Mikhail Gorbachev? You would think, we would probably celebrate the end of potentially the Soviet Union here, or the overthrow of a Soviet leader. Why do you suppose there was such outpouring of support, or at least sympathy for Gorbachev? What do we think on that? We had spent so many years, the Soviet Union as our adversary. Now we have sympathy for Mikhail Gorbachev.
Because he was probably the most diplomatic leader of the Soviet Union we'd seen in a long time, and was engaging in talks and compromising in regards to like Eastern Europe and the control there and other things like that.
I think those are good points, that here Mikhail Gorbachev is someone that the West could perhaps work with. And so might not want to see him go, see it potentially through its end, right? And who knows what these hardliners might do, what the direction of the Soviet Union would be. I always think, when all this was happening, and I think us in the United States are kind of really caught off guard by how it played out, and surprised that it played out the way it did. There was probably some of us thought that we may never see Mikhail Gorbachev alive with this coup attempt here. Tanks. Realistically, are people ever going to win against tanks? Very rare, unless you're the tank man at the Tiananmen Square massacre, where he stood there and the tank went around him. In most cases, where you go up against tanks, you're not going to win. And you see that so often at some of these violent clashes or these incidences, and tanks most likely are always going to win, wherever it is. Prague Spring, Lithuania, here in the Soviet Union, they're going to Hungary, they're going to win. They're going to win. All right. So the coup is going to set up the eventual collapse of it. It doesn't. It's hemorrhaging. It's on its final leg right now. Within a year, it's going to be done. And what fills the place, though, of the Soviet Union, in some ways, is what's going to be known as the Commonwealth of States. And it's very loose. It's very loosely held together here. All right. So there we go. So next week, I'll just put a few final moments on the Cold War. Today, you have a number of things that you could do. You can work on getting the Communism in Crisis complete and turn that in. That is ultimately due tomorrow. So you should see how it plays out. the destabilization that the Berlin Wall created has a ripple effect throughout the Eastern Bloc. So in many cases, you see that having an influence in Czechoslovakia, definitely in East Germany. What happened in Hungary could have influenced what happens in Czechoslovakia and East Germany. Poland, of course, and their success is going to have a ripple effect as well. So hopefully you're seeing the communism in crisis, and that the local leaders are really struggling, and in many cases, they just simply resign, and then transition simply begins here. And the Soviets, as you can tell, they can't really do much. Can't really do much because they have some internal issues at home. All right, so work on that, get that done, and prep for the Cold War assessment as well. And you can ask me today if you have questions about that. Again, tomorrow, no Google Meet, but I will keep it open just in case you have questions about the assessment or how this trimester is coming to an end. All right? So with that, I am done with what I need to do, and you can have the remaining 50 minutes of the class, or plus, to get your tasks done. All right? So there we go. Those at home, stay on or exit.